Nikita Koloff here. Hey, you're listening to InYourHeadOnline.com. Did you understand my English? InYourHeadOnline.com. You gotta tune in every time we're on, or I'll come looking for you and hit you with a Russian sickle.
All right, we're back, and we're joined again by Magnum TA. Welcome to In Your Head.
Hey, guys. Good to be here.
Excellent. Everybody know the number's 508-644-8503 if anyone wants to call in with a question for Magnum. And you got the big show coming up this Saturday for Pro Wrestling Mid-Atlantic. It's the Magnum TA inaugural Pro Wrestling Tournament. The Keith Crockett presents Pro Wrestling Mid-Atlantic's Magnum TA Tribute Show. How many?
You know, when Keith came up with this idea, I was kind of flabbergasted because I just never, thought of anybody doing something like this, especially in my hometown of Chesapeake, Virginia. And I know Keith's put a lot of work into making this thing something special, and I hope it'll be something the fans will enjoy.
Mm-hmm. Is this isn't the first year they've done it, is it?
Yeah, this is the first year.
Oh, it is? Oh, yeah, I guess so, since it's the inaugural tournament.
Yeah, inaugural. Keyword did inaugural.
I'm a wrestling fan. I need the dictionary.
I understand.
That's going to be in Chesapeake, Virginia. The doors open at 6, bell time 8 p.m. There's a lot of other legends on the show. Maybe give us some thoughts on some of these guys. The Barbarian?
Oh, yeah, well, the Barbarian is timeless. The Barbarian will be the Barbarian until he's no longer on the planet. I love John. He's a good man, and he and I go way back. We actually broke in together at the same time in Portland, Oregon, working for Don Owens out there. And my career started with him, and of course I watched him and go on and have a great career with WCW and work in WWE and all the things he did. And he's just a super guy. I'm glad he's going to be part of this event.
Mm-hmm. So you got Bob Caudle?
Oh, Bob Caudle. Well, you can't say enough good things about Bob. I mean, Bob was the voice of Crockett Promotions for so long. Somebody that I watched as a young man and then had the pleasure of working with him professionally. And he's just always a consummate gentleman and professional. And, something like that wouldn't be the same without having him be a part of it.
Mm-hmm. You got Kamala, former guest here.
Oh, the Ugandan warrior. Yes, our roots go back to the Mid-South days and Bill Watts, and he and I wrestled, of course, in the first Great American Bash here in Charlotte, North Carolina, back in 1985, I believe it was, and he's still out there, mixing it up, and it'll certainly be exciting for the fans to see.
Mm-hmm, definitely. Rugged Ronnie Garvin, Hands of Stone.
Oh, well, another of the timeless people. I saw Ronnie at some other reunion event sometime in the last year, and Ronnie still looks to be as fit and in good shape as ever. And I had the pleasure of being there when Ronnie became the world weight champion. Back then, after my accident in the late '80s, and just a super guy and one of the true legends in the sport, as far as I'm concerned.
Mm-hmm. Bill Apter from the Wrestling Illustrated magazines.
Yeah, Bill Apter, what special guy. Certainly gave me a lot of great ink in his magazine back in the day, and we had the pleasure of doing some special interview segments that we shot at Crockett Promotions back in those days, and just a special part of that, kind of that golden era that the mid '80s was all about.
Definitely, and a friend of the show, Baby Doll.
Yeah, I'm really looking forward to seeing Nickel. I haven't seen. She was actually at an event that I did down in Tampa. Yes, almost 2 years ago when they had that event down there, and I never crossed paths with her. We weren't in the same place at the same time, and I haven't seen her in probably over 15 years. So much looking forward to seeing her and catching up. My mom my mom and dad still have a poster of her and I and Dusty together back from our heyday, and they've got it proudly displayed in their family room. So it's kind of she's kind of part of the family.
Yeah.
Oh man.
Yeah, I think she just started doing doing like shows again, just like in the last year or so.
Yeah, I've heard her name around, but I usually only do a couple things like this, maybe a year, and so consequently, a lot of the guys I don't get to run into.
I get a caller here. It's Jason. You got a question?
I have two, if it's okay.
Sure.
My first one is, Magnum, looking back on your match with Tully Blanchard at Starrcade, the I Quit match, did you ever think while that match was taking place that it would become as memorable as people hold it up to be?
Never in a million years. As a matter of fact, I always thought the match was anticlimactic a little bit for me, because it was the end of a very long feud that we'd had, and we'd shot so many different angles and done so many things on TV, and we had so much time in it. It just seemed like it went by in the blink of an eye. I mean, the match itself was, the intensity was through the roof, and it seemed like it came and went too quick. But no, I would have never imagined that 20 years after the fact, it would evoke the kind of memories and emotions it does from people that still talk about it, and intensity we had, and the violence and everything else that it portrayed. It was it was a special moment in my career, without a doubt, and something that 9 times out of 10, if anybody ever asks me about a match, that's the one they bring up.
Mm-hmm. I still remember the finish in that match. I think is really memorable. I guess because it's so realistic.
Well, it was because we were trying to we had gotten to such a level of animosity between each other, and at that time it was kind of a situation where we still had a good guy and a bad guy, and we had more clearly defined roles, but it had taken us both to such a level of violence that it kind of brought it back into humanity, because it was like I was about ready to kill him because he was trying to kill me, and the people were able to see the turn and the softening, and after the fact, we're just going to let this thing go. Mm-hmm. And it was well thought out, and something that hadn't been done like that at the time, and something I'm proud of. I mean, I've watched it so many times now, and seen it so many times. There's 100 other things that I could see doing it again in the same set of circumstances. But as far as the end results, I think it was a pretty good way to go.
What was your other question, Chris? Jason, sorry.
Thanks. Do you still keep in touch with anyone like Nikita or Dusty?
I don't stay in touch with anybody, just regularly. Jimmy Garvin still lives here in Charlotte, and he and I ride motorcycles together, and he's a pilot on a charter plane company, and we probably talk once a month. Dusty and I, maybe once a year, because he's so busy with all his activities with the WWE. He's very hard to catch up with. I bump into Rick occasionally. Barry Windham bump into, and Nikita and I probably talk to each other, probably 3-4 times a year. And again, he's very busy with his ministry work, traveling all over the country and around the world, helping build new churches. He's a hard man to get settled down in one place very long to even sit down and break bread with. So yeah, that's about the extent of my regular correspondence with any of my old pals.
Thanks for calling in, Jason.
Yes, thank you very much, Magnum.
Yeah, you're welcome, Jason.
I get another caller here. Who is this?
It's LTNA fan from Portugal.
Oh, okay. You got a fan here from Portugal. You got a question?
I have 2 quick questions. The first is, what is your opinion of the Crockett family? Because you worked many years there.
Well, the Crockett family took very good care of me. They were certainly had a dynasty of their own to be had in wrestling. it saddens me what happened with the whole thing, because I really envisioned them having the platform to have given New York a real run for their money. We were giving a better product, in my opinion, in the arenas every night, but they didn't have the vision or the wherewithal or whatever to take it to that next level with the pay-per-view, with the worldwide marketing, and all the things that, you know, Vince was ultimately so successful with. So as far as all the people and the personalities, they were all great to me. They were all super supportive when times were good and when times were tough. And, you know, I have fond memories of working with all of them.
My second question is, what is your opinion about Dusty Rhodes as a person and as a performer?
Well, Dusty, is no secret, was one of my best friends in life. He and I traveled together. We went up and down the road. We talked. We shared each other's dreams and disappointments and everything else. And Dusty was misunderstood by a lot of people because he was a very he had a kind of unique personality on a personal note. He didn't let so many people get really close to him, and consequently he didn't have a whole lot of friends that really knew what he was all about, but he was a very, very special guy and always will be to me. And as far as a performer, there's nobody more charismatic even today than what he was able to accomplish. And he took himself and transformed the world around him to envision him as this hero. And despite his physical capabilities or anything else, he did become the American dream. And that's something that nobody's ever done since like he did it.
Okay.
Well, thanks for calling in, man.
Thank you, Magnum.
You're very welcome.
Goodbye.
Oh, you're very welcome.
Someone here in our chat room, El Santo Loco, he said that he remembers watching you wrestle Ernie Ladd at the Superdome in New Orleans. So I don't know if you had any memories of Ernie Ladd.
Oh, great memories of Ernie. Ernie, not too many people know this, but Ernie Ladd was, first of all, he was the booker for Bill Watts when I went to work for Mid-South. Mm-hmm. And I was in Florida working for Florida Championship Wrestling for Eddie Graham, and Ernie came in just to do a television, just to do a little deal there, and he and I met in the dressing room. And Ernie is the reason I got the opportunity to go to work for Bill Watts and open the door for me to begin the Magnum TA character and the whole deal. And without Ernie Ladd, I'm not saying that it wouldn't have happened, but it wouldn't have happened the way it did, because Ernie's the one that made the call and called me one night and said, hey, there's an opportunity here. We're looking for a new guy. Paul Orndorff had gone to New York, and they had Hacksaw Jim Duggan there. They didn't have any real strong up-and-comer to build around, and he opened that door for me, gave me an opportunity, and that's where it all started, working for Bill. So, yeah, I worked a little program with Ernie, and ended up dropping the North American heavyweight title to him somewhere. It might have even been in the Superdome. But he was just a super guy, great human being, a real class act to be associated with in the wrestling profession, and a real inspiring person to be around that motivated people to try to make them their best. And he's going to be sorely missed, and he's certainly left a mark on me and my life, as well as the thousands and thousands of people out there that he entertained over the years.
Mm-hmm. We got to meet him last year. That was a pretty cool experience.
Well, he was the first big man in the business that can move the way he did. I mean, a lot of people that don't remember back when don't remember the Ernie Ladd that could leapfrog and drop kick and at 6'9", and it was just unbelievable athlete. And in an interview, second to none, and psychology to go with it. And he was just a tremendous he's somebody that transitioned from football, very much a la Walter McDaniels. There was only a few guys that were great football players that went on to be, great professional wrestlers, and Ernie Ladd, certainly one of them.
Mm-hmm. Speaking of that, was there ever guys that came in like from another sport or something that really just didn't respect wrestling?
I think there was guys that well, I know there were guys that thought it was going to be much easier than it was. Do you remember a guy named Otis Sistrunk?
Mm-mm. I don't remember that.
He played for the Oakland Raiders, and Otis was training in Virginia Beach in Waring's gym back when I was right before I broke in, and he was already doing some workouts and everything with them at Mid-Atlantic, going to tell us how he was going to break in, he was going to do this and he was going to do that. And he found out real quick that, wrestling is a whole different world, and the level of athleticism that you had to have, and the cardiovascular, the physical ability to just go and go and go, it wasn't the cakewalk that he thought it was going to be. So, some guys, thought that this was going to be something they could do after, they had retired from, say, pro football or something. It was going to be just a piece of cake. And then other guys, came in there and put, guys like Jim Brunzell or some guys that were other early guys that were amateurs went on to still do well in the professional ranks, because they learned their trade all over again and didn't think just because of what they'd done in the past that was an open door to become a superstar, based on their laurels from the past. So saw a few, but I don't remember anybody ever coming in really making any noise that really went anywhere that had that kind of attitude, because there was too many guys around that could put them into place.
Right.
Bottom line, it didn't matter where you came from, how many trophies you had, how many ribbons you had. Once you learn how to take care of yourself in our world, there weren't too many guys that could do much with you. Yeah. It doesn't matter how many medals they had or how many big rings they had on their hand. All that stuff really didn't mean a whole lot after that point in time.
Right. So throw out the website. Anybody wants to get tickets for the show this weekend, it's ProWrestlingMidAtlantic.com. Do you have a question from the board, Incher?
Glogo, he actually wants to know, what do you think of Ric Flair still wrestling?
My hat's off to him. I mean, I can't believe it. I mean, I'm 47 and he's 10 years older than me. Mm-hmm. And it's to the point where I'm amazed. It makes me a little nervous for him, because I know that for me, I've never found anything in life that I've done in terms of a profession that even remotely compares to the satisfaction that I got from performing. And I feel like Ric Flair, without being able to be in the ring and be in the limelight, may have a hard time rediscovering himself or finding his way how to fit into the world. So I don't know whether he's pushed himself beyond a graceful exit because it's just all he's ever known, or if there's some meaning to the madness. But my fear is that something catastrophic could happen to him and he'd go out in a less than graceful way, just because we're out there bumping around with guys that are 15, 20 years your junior, and they got younger ligaments and tendons and springier legs. Weird things happen. I mean, freaky things happen, in the business and the ring. Look at the guys that have, look at all the guys that have had neck injuries just over the last, 15 years. Yeah. And, all the decompression surgeries that, Chris Benoit, Stone Cold Steve Austin, Edge, of course, who's the guy that's in the wheelchair up there in the WWE that was,
Draws. Darren Draws stuff. Yep.
Yeah. I mean, it's just, things can happen under the best of circumstances, and if you take your age and old injuries into account on top of that, being in the wrong place at the wrong time. Something can get really bad.
He's still taking the big backdrops and.
Yeah, and he's not gonna, he's in great cardiovascular shape, and he can physically go out there and run circles, no doubt, around people, 20 and 30 years his junior. But it's just a matter of, it's a law of averages. It's like you can go out and play high risk games and do adrenaline junkie stuff for 20 years, and then one day you go do the same thing you've done 1,000 times, and you've got something that haunts you the rest of your life. So,
right.
I never wish anything bad on Rick. He's somebody that will never be equaled in our business as far as his accomplishments and things that he's done through the longevity of his career. And I wish him the best. He's got a new young wife, and started a new life and a new family, and I hope he can be around a long time and enjoy him.
All right, get another caller here. Who is this?
It's the Fleet.
You're on air with Magnum TA. You got a question?
Well, first, I just want to thank Magnum because he was one of the guys that really turned me into a huge wrestling fan.
Well, it was my pleasure.
I always enjoyed, all that great stuff with you and Dusty against the Horsemen and all that stuff. But I wanted to ask if you had any good stories or any memories of Southwest Championship Wrestling?
Southwest. You're talking about Joe Blanchard's territory. That was like I'd only been in the business about 6 months out there, and I was kind of in rookie camp. And I remember, I have several memories, but there was the guys that kind of looked after me out there were, Manny, believe this or not, Manny Fernandez looking after somebody, but Manny Fernandez kind of looked after myself and Tom Pritchard. We were kind of the rookies, and the young rookies, and Tiger Conway Jr. and Scott Casey were all out there, Tank Patton, and just traveling up down the road with those guys was a crazy life in itself. But I also it was a great transitioning time for me, because that's where I met Mike Graham, who is someone else I consider a lifelong friend. And Mike was the fellow that brought me to Florida Championship Wrestling, and we just hit it off, just huge. And the wrestling business was such a networking business anyway. It was just all about getting along with people, having some potential, having a good work ethic, but being willing to go with the flow. And I did 6 months there in San Antonio and ate some great Mexican food and had some fun, drank a little too much tequila every once in a while, and lived to tell about it. So it was a good time, and if I ever go back there, I still want to go to the Blanco Cafe and have some more carne asada tacos, because that place was off the hook.
Sounds good to us.
All right, thanks a lot.
Thanks for calling in, man.
All right, bye-bye.
You got another question from the board there, Incher?
Speaking of Wahoo McDaniels earlier, Knight Rider has a question about him. He wants to know what it was like to feud with him.
At the stage in his career when he and I were going at it for the U.S. title, I was certainly on the tail end of his, the bigger part of his career. And I had watched Wahoo, as a teenager, just have brutal battles with people like Johnny Valentine, and where they just pounded the tar out of each other. And Wahoo had this big, thick, hands. It was like getting hit by a side of beef. And he didn't have the endurance and cardiovascular to go like Flair or Tully, even remotely. But boy, when he turned it on, and when he threw you in and gave you that big chop, he rattled you to your very core of your existence. And I often tell people that in my relatively short career, that one of the biggest highlights that of all time, because of the person that Wally was him passing the U.S. title to me in Charlotte, in the Charlotte Coliseum, in front of a sold-out crowd inside of a steel cage. Just the most electrifying moment imaginable, because he truly was a living legend, especially here in the Mid-Atlantic area. I mean, just so many classic battles, and to have him be the one that I won the U.S. title from in front of a sold-out crowd, and just no monkey business, nothing, 1, 2, 3, right in the middle, off the belly-to-belly suplex. I mean, he was just a class guy, and he lived the business with a great deal of integrity, and he loved life, loved hunting and fishing, and loved the sun, and just a good man that I was proud to have been a part of that era with him, and got to spend some time with him on the road and in the ring.
Would you still want to work in wrestling, like a full-time job as like a booker or an agent or anything like that?
I don't know. At this station in my life, if I could ever do what it is that these guys do 24/7 again. Mm-hmm. And I say that because once you're into business, you're always into business, kind of. It's one of those things, it's in your blood. You think about it, you'll watch it even if you're not doing it. You kind of see what's going on. But because of the nature of my injury and the physical challenges that I've dealt with over the last 20 years, and knowing certain limitations that I have, I don't know that I could, and having a life and a family, which is almost impossible to do in the business. I don't know that I could just throw myself into it at 47 the way I was at 27, emotionally and with just that reckless abandon and passion. Because the guys that do it, and my hat's off to them because they do a tremendous job. They eat, live, sleep the business. And the guys that are working for Vince, that are agents and writers and producers, they have to completely dedicate, 26, 28 days a month of their life to being on the road, living, sleeping, breathing, what's going on. All the matches and all the things that they go on are so much more regimented and scripted and written out than they ever were in my day, that it's just bigger monster than I can even imagine. If I'd ever had someone hand me a script and tell me to go do an interview, I'd have been lost, because I mean, I can't even imagine that. I couldn't even read a teleprompter and do it. Not that I can't read, I can certainly read, but I couldn't read a teleprompter with expression and enthusiasm and make it my own, because that wasn't part of what we did. I wasn't an actor. I was we were an artist. We were doing a improv in the round, and that was the part of the art of what we did. I'm kind of a dinosaur, and that I have no doubt that if given the opportunity and maybe brushing up a little bit and getting some of the rust off, that I could probably speak as well as 90% of the people that are employed in the industry today. Mm-hmm. But I do it the way that they do it, I don't really know. I don't know that I could fit into the mold, so to speak, of the way they do things. I don't come from that attitude. It's just hard to teach an old dog new tricks. I never have done it, so I don't have anything to base my opinion on about it.
Mm-hmm. I just want to bring up real quick, we had Mick Foley on last week, and in his new book, he talks about that the creative people in WWE, that some of them actually think Ric Flair isn't a good promo guy. That's why they don't let him talk on TV, and that he had to fight to get Terry Funk, when he recently came back, any promo time on TV. Just thought that was totally insane.
Well, and I guess I guess it's a matter of someone's opinion. I mean, I think if you do a repetitive, I think Mick Foley was one of the best interviews out there, and I can't imagine them scripting him or Terry Funk for that matter. Maybe Rick's stuff got a little long in the tooth, and maybe as he got a little older, and it all became just the repetitive same thing. I mean, you can't be the the limo riding, jet flying, wheeling, dealing son of a gun, but for so long,
Right.
and without freshening up the material. I dare say Dusty could go out there and do an interview, and I know he can. I watched that little piece that they did in the last year where they had him and Roddy Piper and somebody else out there going to be Rick's partner for the night in a tournament. And Dusty, no matter what anybody ever wants to say about his work in the ring, try to knock anything about him, there's nobody in the world that could out-talk that man when he was on and when he was flowing and going and in the height of his creativity. I mean, he was as good as it gets. And that was always the thing about the business back during our time. You were as known for your interview and your ability to communicate and talk people into the arenas and talk about the angle as your work, what you did. Because if they didn't come to see you, it didn't matter if you went there and had a 5-star match. If there wasn't a whole bunch of folks in there to watch you, it really didn't make any difference. You might as well have been the curtain jerker.
Right.
So again, the interview part of it is something that I still hold, kind of near and dear, because that was always the thing that kind of separated the men from the boys. And there's been some tremendous talent and guys that never were able to really, be a great interviewer. I mean, I grew up watching people like Blackjack Mulligan that just, talk to you like, you'd be enchanted like you were listening to a story when you were a kid. And those are the things that I cut my teeth on. And I don't know how the young guys today or the talent today is ever going to develop, any talent if they've got a bunch of writers out there giving them words that they've got to make their own, and how they're ever going to develop into anything. Maybe it doesn't matter, because if it's the old adage, if it's not broke, don't fix it. I'm sure Vince sees his product is working well. You've got good ratings and everybody's making a lot of money, and so, why change the flow? And he might be right. That might be the way, the deal. But I'm just from that older school, and, I think you need to be able to do it all. You need to be well-rounded. You need to understand the psychology, and everybody's aspiration should be to be the world's heavyweight champion and understand enough about psychology that you could be a booker if given the opportunity. So, that's just the difference in then and now, I guess.
When you do some of these shows nowadays, do any of the younger guys ask you for any advice?
Not anything specific. I mean, I went and watched, I tell you what I was most impressed with recently. In the last year I went and I did a TNA show, one of the arena shows up in Richmond, Virginia. And the guys there have done something to try to make a marketably different product than Vince has got with the octagonal ring and the deal. And some of those guys are just absolutely as good of an athlete as I've ever seen. That AJ Styles is just absolutely phenomenal. But again, a guy like him, who's kind of like a young Chris Benoit, unless somebody really develops his persona and his personality, will never realize his true potential in the business. But again, we're in a different era where we got guys making so much money just working on television and doing things that don't require them to do all the travel, do a lot of the things that we used to do in cars, for all those years. That I don't know where their head's at exactly in terms of what their ambition is to become or what it is to do. And I don't know that they'll ever, get that opportunity again to do all those localized, specific interviews we used to do for the towns. And I mean, we used to go sit in a room along with, 50 other guys and do interviews for 3 and 4 hours, for all these different markets. And I mean, just the sheer, hours and amount of time with a mic in front of you, it either came out of you or you either had it or you didn't.
Right.
I mean, you couldn't teach somebody how to talk. You really couldn't.
Did you have any more questions from the board, Incher?
Yes, I did. Head Cheese, he wants to know, you used to beat guys with one belly-to-belly suplex. Nowadays, people are doing 3 to 10 German suplexes in a row. What are your opinions on that?
Well, it's the old deal. You know, they painted themselves into a corner because, you know, it's all because people got to the point where they were terrified for somebody to say boring. Mm-hmm. You know, that somebody was, you know, actually not going to be, you know, enthralled with what they're doing. That the art form changed so much. We used to make fun of or make little of the Mexican style of wrestling years ago, many years ago. I'm not talking about recently, but back in the day, we used to call that like, you know, that was like a ping pong deal. I mean, nobody sold anything. Mm-hmm. They dropped you out of the ceiling. You know, they did 25 different moves to you that all should have been finishes in and of themselves. Then the guy's right back up in your face, and you're right off doing another move, and nobody does anything. So pretty much, you know, pretty quickly, you painted a picture that either both of you are Superman, or neither one of you could beat your way out of a wet paper bag because nobody's hurting anybody. And I think that they condition the wrestling fan today to you know, it's like the door's kind of wide open. A guy could come in today like I was in 1986 and walk in there and be kind of a no BS kind of guy, straight shooting kind of guy, and go in there and start actually, you know, beating people with either submission hold or you know, whatever, mm-hmm. but without all the flamboyance of the ding, ding stuff that seems to, you know, that's become the norm. And all of a sudden that would be a marketably different thing today. If somebody actually thought that there was somebody tough enough that had got in this thing, that had a hold, that couldn't be beat, or if he gets this on you, no matter what happens, it's over with, mm-hmm. then it would be kind of special. But yeah, to do, you know, to do, you know, 3 and 4 and 5 suplexes on somebody's head and not let go and all that, they've done it out of necessity because they're looking for the next pop. What are you going to do next? Mm-hmm. I mean, Mick Foley knew. He was smart. I mean, he had done it all. He'd come off the top. He'd been on fire. He's had thumbtacks stuck all over him. He'd been cut his ear off in barbed wire. I mean, he got to the point where if it was short of actually dying, there wasn't a whole lot left for him to do. Mm-hmm. So writing books and being a character and doing all those things was a logical next thing for him to do because he had become the ultimate stunt man. He took it beyond, you know, what Terry Funk ever thought about doing, and took it to the next generation, to the next era. And it's not a matter of that one could have done it, the other couldn't. We're all just basically kind of get thrown out there, and here's what the market bears, here's what the expectations are of the people. Therefore, this is what we're going to have to do. I mean, the things that they're doing now with the, you know, the thumbtacks and just all the outrageous stuff. Mm-hmm. It's old school hot shotting is what it is. Mm-hmm. And they used to do that stuff in Tennessee, and they used to kill their territories. But what it is now, we don't have a territory. We got the world, and we got kids that watch stuff on TV that's, you know, frankly, you know, just, you know, juvenile and stupid in my estimation. But you know, that's the stuff that's selling movies and people are watching. They want to see people do dumb stuff. So the more outlandish, the crazy things that you can do, you know, if somebody's buying it, somebody's watching it, guess what? If 1,000 people get tired of watching it, there's 3,000 more people there that, you know, think it's funny because they've never seen this group of people do this stupid stuff. Mm-hmm. And so we're not dealing from a traditional wrestling fan or a traditional, you know, this group of people that pay a ticket every 2 weeks to come watch it. We're dealing with a whole world that's got a channel flicker, and if they don't get instantly, you know, glued to something while they're surfing the channel, they switch it. You know, they watch some extreme sport, or they watch the UFC, or they watch, you know, you got all this action out there that's vying for everyone's attention. And, you know, I know exactly what Vince has done, what he's done. I mean, he's got the TNA, he's got the violence, he's got the vulgarity, he's got every button pushed that he can possibly push for him to compete against everything else out there, you know, in prime time when he's on. Mm-hmm. And you know, and that's what's driven to what it was. if he thought that he'd be selling out with guys working a headlock for 30 minutes, then they'd be out there working a headlock for 30 minutes. But he knows that they won't come.
Right.
That won't do it, and that won't work in 2007. So the guys that we were starting to take it to a higher level of violence with the I Quit match and things that were happening, even in the NWA and the old Crockett regime, and we were going to get to the same place. We were going to get to a point of, short of physically killing somebody or beating them to a pulp in the hospital, that we would have had the same situation happen to us. I mean, don't kid yourself. Just because we were pushing the realism and the physical altercations, at some point in time, we would have trouble outdoing ourselves as well. So just turning it into saying, look, folks, this is just entertainment, and we're going to give you the wildest entertainment we can give you. That takes a little bit of the heat off, and then the guys going out there doing all these things that technically should be a finish and hold. Well, guess what? It's not nobody thinks it's a shoot anymore, and they're never going to unravel that or rewind that or put that back in the box. So if you're going to compete on this playing field, you better know how to do it all, and and be able to willing to sacrifice your body and do whatever it takes.
Now that you say people don't think it's a shoot anymore, do you think like the rise of UFC and MMA will take any of the fans away from wrestling?
Absolutely, it'll take, but the fans that it's taking or that it will take still won't be the fan for. It'll never be unless the guy, what's his name, Dana White, runs that. Unless he really gets a bigger picture of how to market, how to do things, because he's got a cash cow right now. He's got it reversed almost back to like it was during the wrestling day with the promoters. He's got these guys going out there killing themselves, literally putting their bodies on the line, having career-ending injuries, not making squat for money, and he's making them all this money off the television. He's making all this money off the pay-per-views. And the wealth is not being shared linear across the board. So you got guys out there vying for a six-figure contract, big whoop-de-deal. I mean, a six-figure contract is a job guy in the WWE. Right. That's nothing. And I think that I think it's interesting that guys like Ken Shamrock and Tito Ortiz have danced back and forth in between the veil on both sides of those organizations, and they, I have a love for amateur wrestling. I wrestled from the time I was 13 years old. I was state champion in Virginia in 1977. Dan Gable was my hero, and I thought he was the baddest cat on the planet in the 70s because that's what I aspired to be. And people who become fans of the UFC and the mixed martial art deal, they know it. They know it's real deal. They know people get hurt. You'll know something's happening to that if they ever start if the interview portion of that thing starts really getting tweaked a little bit, they start manipulating some things, you'll know that the money monster has really gotten a hold of it, because it would be so easy to work it. It would be so easy in the big matches to do it, and boxing's done it for gone through it forever, and everybody wants to be big kayfabe about boxing, but there's tough guys and all that stuff. I mean, there's tough guys, period. But bottom line is, two monsters pounding on each other. The UFC's pretty much shown the limit of human capabilities. Right. 3 5-minute rounds, and that is, those guys are in better shape than anybody I've ever seen in my entire life. And they're not 250 pounders either. They're 180 and 190, 200 pounders and smaller. So those guys will never have the longevity or the long careers or anything else because of the nature of what it is. I'm sure it's got to be putting some dent in what Vince does, but I don't think Vince really looks at them as competition as much as he does what's on prime time on television. I think that's what he's looking at as its real competition.
I think it would have been more competition for like a WCW because they would say the fans of WCW and NWA were more like sports-orientated fans than the WWF or WWE fans.
Yeah, you're probably right. And again, trying to portray it more as an athletic competition, all of the Bill Watts days and all that, it would lend itself, more to that kind of comparison. But again, that was a bad road to go down because, like I said, once the lid started coming off that box and trying to go out there and frankly, he really did the whole world a favor because that was the biggest goofy part of the whole thing. Mm-hmm. Because we all took pride in our performance, without a doubt, and it was always the thing that was so misunderstood that if you didn't defend it, people said, "Oh, y'all just a bunch of actors, you're a bunch of fakers. Nobody, y'all know who's going to win. Who's going out there looking silly." Not realizing what's actually happening in the sake of entertainment. I've worked security in nightclubs in my youth, and I've trained with some very serious athletes my entire life, and nothing I ever did was as physically demanding or challenging as what a all-out performance was in that ring. With guys like Tully Blanchard, with guys like Nikita Koloff, with guys like the Road Warriors, with guys like Ronnie Garvin, Wally McDaniels. Most physically demanding things I've ever done in my life. And what we did and what we called entertainment would put most people in the hospital. It laid most people up for weeks. Mm. And they would fail to realize that we were all 240, 250, 260, 300-pound men that were making full contact. Even if we weren't trying to kill each other, we were making contact, moving at Mach 7, and we were going at it anywhere from 15 minutes to an hour, in the sake of entertainment. And in doing that, it was just that. But having to defend it 24/7, and its credibility and its legitimacy, that was always something that was kind of, the offhanded part about the whole deal. Yeah. Because you certainly didn't want to go, we weren't out here defending our nation, against, people coming in trying to take it over. We're out there doing something for entertainment, and you would get so worked up about it, some Yahoo, wannabe, in a nightclub or a bar, or even on the street trying to impress his girlfriend, pick a fight with you or try to, do something, and somebody end up, getting badly hurt over something just totally stupid, was a place that I didn't really like to be. I didn't like that part of it. And I worked out in the rings with guys that were, aspiring to want to come get in the business, and I'd give them a hard match and rub them around in the ring a little bit, but I wasn't going to break somebody's arm or break somebody's leg because they wanted to be a professional wrestler. That's a bunch of BS. Mm-hmm. It was a tightly held group of people that, defended, the kayfabe of, 90 years of having done this, but, it wasn't worth doing all that. All that to say. It was a golden age, and we certainly got looked at, differently than the people that came behind us, because then it all just became such a showboat deal. But I've got counterparts out there, and I won't mention any names, that I still think to this day they think everything they did was a shoot, right. And it wasn't. Well, I remember back when we did it, it wasn't like that. We were the real deal. Well, real deal nothing. If it was a real deal, there would have been one champ, and his name would have been Andre the Giant, and it would have been case closed.
You got a question from the board, then, sure?
Crusher, he actually wants to know, do you feel that Mr. Wrestling 2 had a hand in making your career with your feuds with him?
Well, he certainly did, and that was really, he was the one that I worked to deal with, but really the whole thing was the brainchild of Superstar Bill Dundee. Bill Dundee had come in from Tennessee, took over the book for Bill Watts, and he just had a wealth of angles and things that he'd done in the past. When he came in, a lot of fresh ideas, and he saw wrestling too. He saw a natural way to build this rivalry, and in the stage 2, Wrestling 2 was at the time. It was a perfect time for him to turn heel, because he was not the Wrestling 2 of his youth. He wasn't the Rubber Man anymore. He couldn't. I mean, he was still in good shape, and he could still work, but he wasn't the same guy that he was 10 years earlier. And it was just a perfect deal to put me in the light of him being my coach and guiding me, and then him having the jealousy over me getting going to get the shot for the North American title ahead of him, and it was a good angle, and I learned a lot by it, because frankly, he was a wily old veteran, and he did a lot of things that when we were working that angle earlier on in the ring, that not that physically he could have done anything to me even remotely, but in terms of psychology, he did things that wouldn't necessarily put me in the light that I should have been in as the baby face in the matches. And guys like Grizzly Smith, smartened me up about what was going on, and I learned a lot about how to take care of myself professionally, as far as the way the fans were to perceive what I was doing, and how to handle myself. And it really laid the building blocks and the foundation for what I was to go on to do when I came to work for Jim Crockett. Because had I not had that kind of baptism by fire, so to speak, by working main event angle with a wily old veteran who knew all the ins and outs and the tricks and the little things that he could do to kind of get over on you without you knowing it, then I wouldn't have been as prepared as I was to go on later and work with different people. Not that I really have ever had anybody really try to take gross advantage of me, but I learned how to take care of myself as a result of working that angle.
And do you think it'd be harder to make it in the business now without all the different territories to work for, than move on to the big time?
Oh, absolutely, without a doubt. Because when I got my break with Bill Watts, I had been in the business 2.5 years, and in that 2.5 years, I probably had already worked probably about 1,000 matches in front of a live crowd, maybe more, but a good 1,000. And then I did 1.5 years with Bill, and we were working 8, 9, 10, 11 times a week there. So 1.5 years there. By the time I came to the Mid-Atlantic and was first on the Superstation on TBS, I probably literally had over 3,000 matches under my belt. I had worked on top and drawn money in large territories where we were averaging $20,000 a night in spot shows and $100,000 in big arenas like the Superdome, and had a lot of experience that today, they work in the Monster Factory or whatever they've got down there in Georgia, and then the Ohio territory, and they work those little gigs, and then next thing they know, they're on SmackDown. I don't think that they can do anything in that venue that can prepare them for what, what's going to happen when that opportunity then presents itself, to be, a main eventer on television. So it's certainly got to be harder today, and there's got to be a lot less opportunities because there's less places to go and be a star.
Yeah, I think it's only very few guys that just pick it up so quick, like The Rock or Kurt Angle. But for the most part, the guys they bring up really fast, they never really amount to, I don't think, to the potential that they expect them to be.
Well, like Batista. He's a physical specimen that's just awesome and got a look and a charisma about him, but very, very limited in what he can actually perform in the ring. And it reminds me a little bit of, like Nikita was when he started. And of course, Nikita was, 275 and had very little experience. And when he and I worked, the angle for the U.S. title, that was the most challenging thing I'd ever done, because all of a sudden I was the veteran in there with a guy that had very little experience trying to lead a main event angle, and it came off very well, and it was really the thing I'm most proud of to this day, because I was in charge for the first time ever. I mean, I was always in there before with a Tully Blanchard or Rick. I think the guy looks like $1 million. I think he's got a decent interview, and he carries himself well. Mm-hmm. But when the bell rings, he can. He's not prepared. And I watched that little deal. He worked with the Big Show when they started that deal over there when he'd just come back, and the Big Show just guzzled him up, and just made him basically to me look like a big job guy. And I don't fault the Big Show for that. Batista was supposed to be a main event guy that they were bringing back, grooming him to put him back, making the world's heavyweight champion again, and he didn't know how to take care of himself. And that's a huge part of the deal, especially with all this live stuff that those guys do. I mean, it's one thing to go in an arena in front of 10,000 people and have a screw up. That's pretty bad. But to go out there and have millions and millions and millions of people watching you, right, and lay an egg, that isn't something that I wouldn't even want to think about.
Yeah. So remind everybody, you got the Pro Wrestling Mid-Atlantic Magnum TA Tribute Show this weekend, Saturday, with the inaugural Pro Wrestling Tournament, March 17th in Chesapeake, Virginia. Check out ProWrestlingMidAtlantic.com. Anything you want to tell your fans? Why they should come out to see this?
Well, biggest thing I want to tell the fans is thank you, because without the fans, there would be no wrestling. There would have been no venue in which us to have done all this stuff, and we weren't out there saving the world or finding the cure for cancer, but we were out there giving it our all to help people be able to live their lives vicariously through what they saw us doing, or just forget about their troubles for an hour a week. But the wrestling fans were great, and I realized that there was usually 2 or 3 of us in the ring. That the boss says there's 3 men in a match, even if there's counting the referee. But I beg to differ with them. Everybody in that arena is part of that match, and without them, it would be a pretty boring place to be.
Really appreciate you coming on tonight.
Well, thank you. It was my pleasure, and I thank you guys for having me.
Thanks, everybody, running some questions. I'd love to have you back sometime next time you're at a big show.
Well, you guys feel free to give me a call anytime.
All right.
This is Tully Blanchard, one of the original members of the Four Horsemen, with Ric Flair and Arn and Ole Anderson. And you know what? With this world of high technology, you've got to go to the best. You've got to be the best. You've got to have the best equipment, just like the Four Horsemen always told you. InYourHeadOnline.com. That's the premier place to get your information about the wrestling business today, tomorrow, and even in the past. This is your place for the best, by the best, with the best.